In a quiet roadside diner, siblings Joseph and Sydney reconnect. Not long ago, they pulled off a major heist, escaping with $7 million in cash. The two quickly go over their next steps. Sydney urgently needs her share. She's deep in debt and trying to provide for her daughter. Steph, she's haunted by the time she lost as a parent and hopes to make things right. But before any redemption, they need to vanish completely. Joseph claims he knows the perfect hiding place. Just then, a siren screams outside the diner. Without hesitation, they bolt into the nearby woods. They ditch their clothes in a murky swamp, changing into fresh ones stashed in their bags. Joseph says an old friend has granted them access to an isolated country house no one remembers anymore. After hiking through a cornfield, they hear distant gunfire. Approaching the house cautiously, they spot a parked car and 3 armed men shooting at bottles for fun. Sydney confronts them with her shotgun, but it's Joseph's sudden appearance that sends them running. They rush into the now empty house. Joseph immediately notices an antique grandfather clock. As they explore the rundown place, the sound of more sirens creeps closer. Sydney panics, but Joseph opens a door leading to a pantry and insists this is exactly where they need to be. He hurries to the big clock and begins adjusting its hands in a specific sequence. Sydney does the same with others scattered through the house. When all the clocks begin to chime, in eerie unison, they step into the pantry and shut the door. Thunder crashes above. Lightning flickers. Joseph pulls out a worn notebook and instructs Sydney to dial a number on the old rotary phone and repeat a phrase before hanging up. Voices of officers can be heard searching nearby. Sydney follows the instructions. She speaks the phrase, hangs up, and then all falls silent and black. When they reopen the door, everything has changed. The house is spotless, the clocks are still, and there's no one in sight. Joseph resets the main clock. Sydney, in disbelief, realizes they've succeeded. Joseph reminds her they must stay for at least 2 weeks. The place is well stocked with food, drinks, and entertainment. Their first day is calm. Joseph roams the grounds. Sydney enjoys a hot bath and tries on vintage clothes. On day 2, they cook, chat on the porch, and sort the stolen cash, fantasizing about their future. Sydney gazes at a photo of Steph, aching with guilt but hopeful for a second chance. They inspect old paintings and practice their marksmanship. Clearly, both are no strangers to weapons. The days pass. On the 13th night, Sydney tells Joseph about old tools in the house that are worth a fortune, forgotten by modern society. She shifts the conversation to their childhood. Joseph regrets not being there for her more. She assures him her life wasn't a total loss. After all, she has Steph. Joseph vows to make amends. Curious, she asks about the mysterious woman who gave them this strange sanctuary. Joseph admits he doesn't know much. She handed him the notebook out of pity and vanished. Memories of their parents surface. Sydney recalls their mother playing piano. Joseph, their father's stern presence. Sydney hums a haunting melody she remembers but can't name, heard again now on a dusty stereo. Suddenly, she begs Joseph to take her back to Steph. The two prepare to leave. Joseph burns their trash, while Sydney cleans the house, but the pantry door is sealed shut. A plank nailed across it points them to an old mill. Sydney panics and runs. Joseph catches her and manages to calm her down. They investigate the decrepit mill and find pews in the basement, alongside a decaying corpse. A message carved into the wood warns they are trapped in a time loop. Below it, a line to sign in acknowledgement. Sydney refuses and tries to flee, but collapses in pain beyond the property's edge, coughing blood. Joseph drags her back. She sobs, realizing escape is impossible. Joseph identifies the body. It's the woman who gave him the notebook. He recognizes a family heirloom clock by her side. They consider whether anyone could possibly find them, but realize they erased their own trail too well. With no options left, Joseph signs the plank. A hidden compartment opens, revealing a safe. Following the notebook's clues, he opens it. Inside, a tape recorder and instructions. He records a message and closes the door. Moments later, he plays it back. A voice answers. The stranger on the tape says they shouldn't be on the property. He knows about the money. Sydney offers a portion of the cash in exchange for freedom. The recorder falls silent. Joseph suspects they're speaking to someone from the future. Sydney tries next. The voice returns with a chilling reply, and that is, to preserve the balance of this place, they must be erased. Joseph is convinced the stranger wants something from them, or they'd be gone already. The voice issues a condition. If they want to escape, they must kill a visitor who will arrive someday. Once his body is destroyed, they'll be granted a way out. Back at the house, Sydney checks the kitchen and closets. Everything is stocked again. Determined, she prepares to watch every path to the house. Joseph proposes taking turns on guard duty. Sydney pours out the liquor. They stash their weapons around the yard and at the mill. While Joseph stands sentry, Sydney studies the old photos and artwork, looking for clues. Then they switch places, as Sydney keeps a close eye on the land surrounding them. Nearly a year drifts by. Joseph and Sydney settle into a rhythm within the strange house. Every comfort is inexplicably provided. Meals appear in the fridge, the water always runs hot, and life resembles a quiet domestic exile. Sydney spends her time poring over vintage books, faded magazines. She becomes obsessed with the mystery, even practicing with the old bullhook and building fires in the yard each evening. One day, she tells Joseph about a box of photographs she found at the old mill. From these, she realizes the portraits in the front hall aren't of the farmhouse's original owners. Apparently, the land, and the house, was displaced sometime after 1955. Records and clippings document life here up until the end of the Korean War, and then, nothing. One photo shows a naval officer who, according to local legend, died here from a fall. Sydney believes that's around when they, the mysterious occupiers with advanced tech, arrived and made this place their own. Electricity, heat, TV, it was all installed after that time, though no one officially lived here. Her theory is that the house acts like a kind of snare. Whoever enters it at the wrong moment gets trapped in time, just as they did. Still, these answers offer no real escape. Joseph grows increasingly bitter, blaming himself, then their absent parents, then the strangers behind all this. He insists their captors don't care about them, they're just experiments, pawns in a game with no rules. No one stumbles into this place by accident, and no one leaves. Their frustration boils over into a fight. They apologize, their bond as siblings resurfacing. They return to the foyer. Sydney watches vintage broadcasts while Joseph stares at their identical tattoos. Desperate for clarity, Joseph tries again to contact the unseen entities through the tape recorder. He begs for a response. Silence. Then one day, someone appears on the property. A man, watching Sydney through binoculars. He raises a rifle, aims at her, but Joseph spots him just in time and shouts. The bullet misses. The hooded intruder fires again, this time at Joseph, who narrowly escapes into the house. The siblings grab weapons and try to hunt the man down, but he vanishes. Joseph sneaks around back, hoping to reach a hidden cache in the field, but the stranger is already there. He fires again. Joseph ducks and flees back to the house. The man is on his tail. Later, Sydney hears music in the distance, the song their mother used to play, coming from an old tape player held by the stranger. Joseph lies on the ground nearby, wounded. Sydney rushes out. She confronts the intruder. They argue, and in the chaos, she's shot. She retreats into the house, patching herself up as best she can. She tries to open the pantry door, but it's sealed again. Furious, she pounds on it until a warning message appears, telling her not to continue. A new safe emerges from the wall. Meanwhile, Joseph awakens inside a church. His legs are tied. Back at the house, Sydney opens the safe and resumes contact with the unseen voices. She demands they let her retrieve her brother. They warn her that if she breaks down the door, both she and Joseph will die. In the church, the stranger notices Joseph reaching for a weapon and knocks him back. The voices insist that the visitor must be eliminated. They cannot risk him escaping. Sydney mentions the song playing earlier. The strangers dismiss it. The visitor, they say, is not her mother. The hooded man, who cannot speak, writes a message for Joseph. It tells him to lie, to tell the voices they've completed the task and killed the intruder. Sydney, pressured by the voices, starts revealing everything she knows about the visitor. They promise an explanation, but the connection suddenly cuts out. In the church, the visitor hands Joseph the tape recorder. Joseph declares the mission complete. The body lies outside, and he's injured. He pleads with the voices to allow Sydney to collect him. Sydney receives the message and sets out to find him. Meanwhile, the visitor writes that he's looking for the person who murdered his family. Sydney makes a sound outside. The visitor bolts from the church. A gunfight breaks out. This time, the visitor retreats. Joseph grabs his gun, frees himself. Sidney chases the man back into the house. They fight. She lands a shot, takes him down, and rips off the mask. It's her daughter, Steph, now grown. Before she can process what's happening, Joseph bursts in and fires. Sidney dives in front of the shot. She's hit. As she dies in Joseph's arms, Steph escapes through the pantry. Joseph, alone, reports to the recorder that the visitor is gone. He buries Sidney and returns to the mill, where he's taken to a strange place. There, he meets the voices from the tape, to humans, one man, one woman. They interrogate him about the visitor, but Joseph knows nothing. They say he and Sidney broke the rules. They will be erased. Joseph pleads for a second chance. They grant it, and send him back to the very beginning. At the cafe again, Joseph reveals the truth to Sidney. He's been stuck in this loop for countless cycles, always ending with her death. He says there's only one way to break it. She must shoot him, take the money, and go back to Steph. Sidney pulls the trigger. She escapes into the woods just as sirens wail in the distance. The movie avoids a clean sci-fi resolution on purpose. The cryptic rules of time travel, the mysterious figure who offers Joseph a second chance, and the unclear consequences of their actions all point to a deeper, almost existential point. Time travel doesn't erase trauma, it just shifts it around. The ending is meant to provoke thought rather than provide closure.